Well, it's not so much about Russia and China solidifying power in the Middle East. They're liberating the Middle East. They're restoring China's sovereign direction, Saudi Arabia's sovereign direction to Saudi Arabia. Gone is the United States controlling the region through the threat of war and, defining the Middle East as an area of, potential military confrontation. The United States has been promoting the Saudi-Iranian conflict for some time now. We've been the ones fueling it. We've been the ones encouraging Saudi Arabia to build a Gulf Arab coalition to confront the Iranians. We've been the ones seeking to isolate the Iranians. And, China came in and offered an alternative called peace. And they took it because I think the world, not just Saudi Arabia, but the world is getting fed up with American militaristic hegemony. War is not the answer. War is not the solution. Peace is. Cooperation, economic prosperity. Now, it's not going to be an easy thing to do. No one's trying to pretend that suddenly Saudi Arabia and Iran, after being on opposing sides for so long, are suddenly going to be the best of friends. But I think this shows that the United States is finished in the Middle East. It has no vision. Nobody's looking to the United States now for any vision of how to proceed. The day of central command dictating terms of coexistence is over. China came in and said, why don't you guys talk together? Why don't you normalize relations? Why don't we talk about how we can do business with each other, make everybody prosper? And that's the direction they've taken. So I think this is it's one of the biggest stories of the century. It's the end of the Carter Doctrine. It's the end of America's military domination of the Persian Gulf of the Middle East, and it's the beginning of something new. An era where Middle East nations get to determine on their own the direction they want to head, and it appears that they want to pivot towards China and away from the United States. Again, what I said is the old way is over. The reason why Iranian right-wing media was opposed to Saudi Arabia is that Saudi Arabia was in the camp of the United States, and the United States is vehemently opposed to Iran. What they're applauding is Saudi Arabia making a determination that they will no longer allow Washington, D.C. to dictate their policies, dictate their future, dictate their national security. Saudi Arabia will do what's in the best interest of Saudi Arabia, and the best interest of Saudi Arabia is to divorce themselves as rapidly as possible from the United States. Saudi Arabia has a vision, Saudi Arabia 2030. It's a vision that doesn't include going to war. It's a vision that talks about transforming Saudi society and Saudi becoming a leader, an economic leader, and a cultural leader in the Persian Gulf area. And they can only do this if they peacefully coexist with Iran. And so I think that's what the Iranians are cheering. They're cheering the fact that Saudi Arabia has liberated itself from its American colonial masters. And Syria is part of the process, as you're going to see as the Saudis and the Iranians begin to work together. You're going to see, I bet, Hezbollah start to have good relations with the Sunni and the Christians in Beirut as Lebanon starts to heal. Because once you remove the animosity, the American-driven animosity between Saudi-funded political elites in Lebanon and Hezbollah, which is backed by the Iranians, once the Saudis and Iranians say, hey guys, start working together, you're going to see peace. Look at Syria. Saudi Arabia was a major backer of the opposition. Saudi Arabia is now making peace with Syria. Assad went to the United Arab Emirates and was received there after his Moscow trip. I think what the world is seeing is that China and Russia are forces of positive energy. They don't want war. The world is tired of war. And they're not just tired of war, they're tired of being dictated to. This rules-based international order is something that the United States made up and then sought to impose on everybody. And then if people didn't want to play that game, they were accused of being disruptive. Disruptive to what? American hegemony? Yes, perhaps. but not to, when you decide to go out on your own and be your own nation, to do your own thing, that's how you serve your own people. And this is offensive to the United States, but the United States is finding out that it has no leverage. Look, what can it do in the Middle East right now? What can it do? Nothing. Israel's isolated. Everybody's turning away from Israel. In 2020, the Abrams Accord was instituted by the Trump administration as a way of getting Israel leveraged into the Gulf Arab community to create a Gulf Arab-Israeli coalition against Iran. That's dead. That's finished. That's done. Israel's out. Saudi Arabia and Iran are making peace. They're pivoting towards China. Russia is facilitating this. This is the future. Well, PetroDollar is dead. It just doesn't know it yet, but it's dead. The Saudis are cutting deals with the Chinese in yuan right now, using Chinese currency. The Chinese are some of the biggest purchasers of oil. If they're purchasing oil using their own currency, the petrodollar's dead. It's finished. Goodbye. It'll take a little while for the world to purge itself of this, but we are looking at the collapse of the American empire. It's happening right in front of us. And to be honest, it's a beautiful thing. It's beautiful because the petrodollar hasn't brought anything other than greed, American dominance, hegemony. It hasn't been a force of good. The petrodollar is supposed to be, if it's going to be a force of good, it's supposed to be the reserve currency of the world, a force of stability. But the United States has used that to leverage dominance over people, sanctioning people, or in the case of Russia, stealing hundreds of billions of dollars, stealing, theft, straight up theft. No legal justification for it. The United States just stole it because they can. Now, if you're another nation looking at going, wait a minute, you want us to buy into a system that's supposed to bring stability, but if we do something you don't like, you get to steal all our money. It doesn't work like that. It's finished. Goodbye and good riddance.